Hey guys, right, welcome back to another video. So, you've clicked on this one because we're talking about short shifters. So let's have a little look. So, you're probably fed up with your stock shifter that's sloppy, worn out, tired, and you're thinking what's the best way to get a better feeling shifter without spending loads of money, or how the hell do I do it? We're going to talk about short shifters, and we're also going to look at different options and stuff for suiting and fixing and blah 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 blah. So right, so there's our lovely manual gearbox. This one's off an E30 customer's car, but the principle applies for virtually all manual BMW boxes. So all of these boxes are virtually the same in how they work. Your prop shaft that comes out here, the gear selector is done by this. So you've got this twin rod system, upper and lower rod. These are notoriously vague from factory, so we can improve that dramatically. But essentially this part here fixes into the chassis in a bush, so you've got slot from that. You've got this bush at the front here that you've got slot from, and you've got this lower joint. This should have a clip on it, it's missing on this gearbox. But you've got this joint as well which wears. So there's lots of pieces to consider. Now most of our short shifters, this is one I sell, but there's lots of them on the market. Some cheap ones, some crap cheap ones, some good cheap ones, and some expensive ones which are really nice but ultimately just do this job you know, for a lot more money. The main reason to swap out to one of these, obviously it's a short shifter, so you get a shorter throw, more direct engagement, but it does away with a lot of this slop that exists from the stock setup. The stock setup is designed to be smooth, comfy, all that stuff, but we don't want that in a race car, do we? So all we do when we fit one of these short shifters is we essentially move this entire top assembly. So we do away with the slot that's in here, we do away with the slot that's in here, and we change the pivot point anyway, so it tightens it up. You've been off all of that top where most of the slop lies, and all you're left with is the lower rod, which there's no bush in that, just a couple of washers, but they're readily available. So the only slot really that remains is from this joint, and this is replaceable from BMW. I think they're about 30 or 40 quid, maybe 50 quid for an E36 one. This is an early E30 gearbox, a slightly different joint. But essentially you can replace that and tighten it all up. So you'd probably end up spending, I don't know, 150, and you have a real good budget short shifter with nice feel, nice engagement, nice and direct, and do away with all the slot. Now I sell a lot of these, I really like them, but that doesn't mean they're the best thing on the market. If you want a more natural OEM feeling gear selector, then the stock setup is fine. You just need to freshen stuff up. So the first thing is you can swap this out on most cars for a Z3 shifter, factory short shifter on the Z3s. It's a lot shorter, the pivot point is great, so it's a lot more engaging and direct. Once you've figured out if you're going to keep this stock upright or swap to the Z3 one, there's then the bushes to consider. So you can swap this front one out and this rear one out. It lives on the chassis. I'm not climbing under the car to show you at the moment because I can't be bothered. Just being honest. You can swap that out and that out. You can buy them from BMW, you probably spend 30-40 quid. If it's a track car, what I would do is swap them out for Powerflex items. Again, I sell those, they're about 50 quid for the two bushes. It tightens about no end. You do get a bit more noise into the car off the back of it, because obviously it's, you know, there's no rubber to dampen the noise and vibrations from the engine of the box. But essentially, swap this out, swap that rear bush out, and that tightens the stock shifter up no end. Especially on the E36s though, this is the main culprit, or a big part of it. These joints wear, so BMW have revised the design. You can swap those out. Like I say, they're about 50 quid, well worth doing in my experience. But yeah, so that's the main linkage. I'll try and show you. I mean, you can see how much that moves when you select a gear. It still selects a gear lovely and easily, but there's a lot of play. It would help if this had its clip on here, which it doesn't. Someone's obviously done a clutch on this and had it apart, and there's also a bolt missing there. Nice. But yeah, there's a lot of slop. If you just watch that front joint, you know, every time you go to grab a gear, So that's where a lot of the slop comes from. So we want to sack that off or rebuild it. But anyway, this particular customer, he's getting a lovely short shifter fitted. So what we're going to do is disassemble this, and then we need to slightly modify this rod. So we'll show you how to install this. We'll slightly modify this rod so it's a nice tight fit in this lower part. Drill some holes in the chassis and we can bolt it in there. So we're not going to put the box in the car today, but we can show you how to set it up correctly, drill the holes, and then yeah, you can go and do it yourself and test out and see the difference. But trust me, the throw is much shorter, much more engaging than the stock one, which is sloppy jalopy. Okay, so let's assume this is on the car. Removal is quite tricky. Depends on the car, what exhaust on it. Usually you can get to them without dropping the exhaust or dropping the prop, but it depends on the car. There's a few variations, but generally you can just about get this linkage off without dropping anything out of the way. But don't hold me to that. So let's say this is on the car. Obviously you're going to be under the car removing it. So to get this out of the car, you've got two clips. One is on here. It's exactly the same as this one here. Let me pull that off and show you. So you should have a couple of washers either side, like that. Those are replaceable. This one's shagged, so we'll replace that. And you've got these clips. They usually hold up all right. Don't really tend to wear. But they're pennies from BMW, so well worth changing, to be honest. So it should be like, it's like that, and a clip on there, like so. So just pry that clip off dead easy. And that gets our lower rod free. And then this top part is known as the bitch clip, this thing here, because it's really tricky to remove from underneath. Obviously this is well into the tunnel. So usually best method is try and get a flathead screwdriver and just pry, because usually you're coming straight back here, so you need to get under this edge, something like that, and then basically pry it up. But there's a little locking tab on this side, so it's really tricky to fight that because it wants to stay locked in. But yeah, if you give it enough persuasion, you will be able to pop that off like so, and then just pull back, and then once it's up, you can then just wiggle it out like so. I'm making this look really easy because it's off the car. It is a lot trickier on the car because space is limited, access is limited, but it can definitely be done. So you're going to pull off the whole linkage, that's what you're left with, and then the bits we need is just this lower bar, so we're going to pop that off. So we need to give that a little tickle. That we essentially don't use. We will keep the boot because we can reuse the boot with most of the shifters. Otherwise you get fumes and stuff into the cabin. And this reverse plug we're going to keep on this particular car. So we're going to keep that to one side. Just to note as well, sometimes, well, this one's very worn, you can replace this plastic insert that the ball is in the socket. So if you're keeping the stock shifter, this one's got quite a bit of play, I'm not sure the camera will pick it up, but you can replace that plastic ball, and that will help tighten the shifter up even more. Anyway, that's no good, we don't want that now, stick that to one side. So what we've got to look at next is basically we are going to make sure our lower rod is a nice snug fit into here. It's probably going to need a little bit of sanding. So if you look, that doesn't go straight in there. So what we need to do is, with a bit of 240 grit sandpaper or similar, we're going to sand this shaft here to a smaller diameter until we can push it into here. Now we want it to be a tight fit, but obviously when it's too tight it's never going to go in. But yeah, we're going to sand a bit of material off that and get it in there. There's needle bearings in here, so there's a bit of resistance, but yeah, don't go too crazy. So I'm going to sand this and come back to you. Okay, so that's now sanded. If you haven't got, well, you should have coarse sandpaper, but all I did was I cheated a bit. I used a brand new flat disc and just gave it a little tickle as evenly as possible around each edge, just a small amount of material off, and then just used a bit of 240 just to sort of polish it and get it smooth again. So that's now a nice fit on there. What we can do is just add a little tiny bit of grease for these bearings around that, shaft. Don't want loads on there, just to lube it up. And then with that lubed up, this will then slide on there nicely. Nice tight fit. So you need to sand it. Pretty much every car will need it sanded, but obviously don't go too crazy and remove too much material, because you want that to be a nice tight fit. But then that's lovely, nice tight fit, glides beautifully. Obviously we need to put the washers and clips back on there, so I think a washer either side from memory and a clip. I'm not going to do that yet, because the next job is we're going to drill the holes, so we'll use this base plate as a template for where to drill in the car. But the main thing is the rod is now ready and fits lovely into there, so that's good. So just before we go into the car, I thought I'd show you what you're left with. This will be fixed into the car, and then obviously you select, this doesn't move, and then as you move it around it selects a gear. So yeah, super simple to fit, bit fiddly but nothing too bad. Now one thing worth mentioning is some cars will require you to remove the center console. To do a nice job, preferably you want to remove the center console, because it's a bit of a tight fit, but there should be just enough room. It's pretty dark in here, I apologise for that. There should be just enough room once you've taken the gear stick rubber and stuff off. You should be able to just tease this into place. Right, so where you've got this hole in the tunnel, there we go. Where you've got this hole in the tunnel, we want to centralise this to that hole. So yeah, the better the job you do here, the more central your gear stick will be. Obviously if you drill it slightly off centre, you know, this could be slightly off centre, but don't overthink it. You know, there's a little bit of room for error, so as long as you're relatively in the middle of the hole, as per this one, you're onto a winner. So we want to whip this hardware out, place this in position, drill the holes. Obviously we might need to cut some of this carpet back, drill the holes through. I think it's a 6.5mm drill bit, and then once those holes are drilled, a little bit of paint to stop any surface rust, and we can bolt this down straight to the chassis. Right, I've cut the carpet out, dead easy. Use a brand new razor sharp knife, scalpel, something like that, and it cuts through it like butter. A lot of these factory carpets have like relief cuts, kind of as if this was meant to have a short shifter. So, you know, even if you haven't got a knife, you can probably rip a lot of it out. But yeah, do a nice job, cut it with a knife, do a nice clean cut then. So now we're almost ready to drill holes, but on the E30, slightly different to like a 36, 46. This center console, because it's still got full interior, this center console bracket is here. A couple of options here. You could, you know, if the car wasn't going to have an interior, obviously you just cut that off. This particular car is full interior car, so I'm not going to do that. We could spin it round, fit it this way round, but then we're kind of on the side of the gearbox tunnel, not in the flat area, so that's not what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the shifter rather than damaging the car. So I'm just going to cut a U shape into this lower plate here, just so I can basically create a notch where this can then slide back and sit central. So I'll do that off camera and bring you back in. Okay, so we've just clearanced that. Not the prettiest job in the world, you're never going to see it, but just notched it out so it fits around there. So now what we want to do is eyeball this and get it as physically central to the hole as possible. As I say, don't stress about this being 100% accurate, but get it as close to. So yeah, something like that. So once that's centralised, grab yourself a Sharpie and just dab a hole or mark in the middle of each hole. And that's our guide for the drill holes. Get this up out of the way. Get rid of our pen. And then get yourself a centre punch. Make sure you keep the hole in the right place. See, it's fairly critical on this. So once that's marked out and we've centre punched it, we can get our 6mm drill bit and we can drill out the holes. There we go, there's the first one. There we go, and that's our 4 holes drilled. And then we can simply drop our shifter down into there, line it up with the holes, and then drop your hardware through. Need a little bit of persuasion. Maybe a tap with a hammer, but essentially drop your hardware through, and then you can go underneath. You could probably lock an Allen key off in here, but if there's 2 of you, it's a lot easier to get someone to hold it from the top, and you buzz it up from the underneath, and then that's the shifter mounted. If you want to put your boot back on, you can do that easily. Just undo this grub screw that's in here. That's an Allen head. Pop that off, and then you can slide your boot on. Your boot looks like stock, etc, etc. Also, don't forget, before you put your lower linkage rod on, to put your gasket back on the car, because once you put the lower rod on, you can't get it on. So yeah, nearly there with this one. Right, there we go, my GoPro's died, but anyway, that's the shifter now in. So once you drilled the holes, bolted it all in, tied it up, you can then take this knob off. Haha, knob. You've got a little grub screw in here, whip that out, this comes off, and you can put your original boot back on. Probably wants a cable tie to hold that in place, but yeah, so that's now in. Obviously, last piece of the puzzle would be just hooking up the linkage. As I've shown you, that's currently, well, the gearbox currently isn't in the car, it's still down there, so that's going back on the engine today. We'll get that in, and once that is in the tunnel, we'll then hook it up. I've ordered some new clips, and that will be good and proper. So yeah, that's your sort of basic how-to guide on how to make the chassis mount shifter work. Same process applies to virtually every manual BMW, from the E30, E34, E36, right up to like E60s, E90s, that kind of stuff. So yeah, real good, solid bit of kit, and very, very well priced. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that one. Only a quick guide, but yeah, it should be useful to most of you. Yeah, stay tuned for more content, and thank you for watching. Peace out.